My name is Jenny Rhodes, and I'm 29 years old. For the longest time, I thought my marriage was something other people would envy. Stable, dependable, almost unshakable. I wasn't naive enough to call it perfect, but in a world where so many people struggled just to stay afloat, I thought we were steady, solid, safe. I had a career that paid the bills on time. I cooked dinners at least a few nights a week. I tried to be present when my husband Daniel wanted to talk about his day. We had been married for 4 years, together for nearly 6, and I wore the title of loyal wife like a badge of honor. I never looked twice at anyone else. I made compromises when he asked. Once, I even turned down a job offer in another city so he could finish his training program here. At the time, he had squeezed my hand and told me I was the rock he could lean on. And I believed him. I believed that being someone's rock was a compliment. But over the years, that word, dependable, started to shift in tone. It no longer sounded like gratitude. It began to feel like an insult. It showed in the small things. If I suggested a weekend trip, he would sigh and say, "That sounds fine, but you're not exactly the adventurous type." When I bought tickets to a local play, he would roll his eyes and mutter, "You know I like upscale things more than that." He even began to take little jabs at my career. I'm not a CEO, but I make good money, and I've always been proud of the fact that we've never once had to stress over bills. Yet he would smirk and say things like, "You're lucky you don't care about ambition the way I do. Must be nice being satisfied with average." I told myself it was stress. I told myself it was exhaustion. I wanted to believe he still respected me, but his words began to feel like pinpricks on my skin, tiny, almost invisible wounds that still stung. And then there were the nights he glued himself to his phone. I'd walk into the room, and he'd tilt the screen away with a too casual, "Just TikTok, relax." But something in his posture, in the way his eyes flickered, told me it wasn't TikTok. The space between us grew wider, even when we were inches apart. Conversations shortened into fragments. Laughter became rare. Our silences stretched, cold and heavy, like a wall neither of us wanted to admit existed. One night, I tried to bridge that distance. I came home with his favorite takeout and a bottle of wine. I thought maybe we could eat, maybe watch something together like we used to. My heart ached for something simple, something familiar. He barely looked up from his phone. "I already ate with a friend after work." I forced a smile, even as my chest tightened. "Oh, maybe later then." "Maybe," he muttered, his thumb still scrolling. That night, lying next to him in bed, I stared at the ceiling and wondered when I had become invisible in my own marriage. The ceiling fan hummed above me, steady and indifferent, while he turned onto his side, the glow of his phone reflecting across his face. I thought about all the compromises I had made, the nights I stayed up late waiting for him, the opportunities I had set aside, the ways I had convinced myself that loyalty was enough to keep us whole. But deep down, a whisper began to form, quiet but relentless. What if you're not enough for him? What if you were never enough? And though I tried to silence it, I had no idea that whisper was about to become a roar. It was a Thursday evening when everything finally snapped. Daniel sat at the kitchen counter, his laptop open, fingers flying across the keys. I stood in the doorway for several minutes watching him. His face was tense, his brow furrowed in concentration, as though I were invisible. I cleared my throat softly. "Daniel, can we talk?" He didn't even glance up. "Not this again, Jenny. I'm busy." My hands tightened around the edge of the counter. "This isn't about nagging. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I feel like I'm losing you. I don't know what's happening between us anymore." Finally, he stopped typing, but instead of meeting me with concern, he groaned and rubbed his forehead like I was a burden. "God, Jenny, you always overthink everything. Can't you just let it be?" The words stung, but I pressed on. "No, not this time. I'm serious, Daniel. You barely talk to me anymore. You're always on your phone. You don't even look at me when I walk into a room. What happened? Did I do something? Did I miss something?" For a moment, I thought he would brush me off again. But then he laughed. Not the kind of laugh that warms a room. Not even the kind that hides nervousness. No, this was sharp, dismissive. The kind that cuts straight to the bone. "You really don't get it, do you?" I blinked, my chest tightened. "Get what?" He slammed the laptop shut and looked at me with a smirk I'll never forget. A smirk that said he was superior, that I was naive. "You're basically my practice wife." The air left my lungs. For a heartbeat, I thought I had misheard. "What did you just say?" His voice didn't waver. "Practice. That's all this is. I'll know what I want when I find better. You're good, safe, dependable, but you're not it. You're what people settle for when they're figuring things out." My whole body went cold. The room tilted. Practice. The word echoed in my skull, bouncing around until it hollowed me out from the inside. I wanted to scream, to throw the wine bottle sitting on the counter, to demand how he could say that after everything I had given up for him. But I didn't. Instead, I just stood there, frozen. My jaw clenched so hard I thought it might crack. My stomach sank like a stone. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Daniel rolled his eyes, as if my stillness bored him. He reopened his laptop and began typing again, dismissing me entirely. As though the words he had just spoken weren't a knife through my chest, but a casual comment, something to toss aside and forget. But I couldn't forget. I knew in that moment that something in me had broken, not in a loud, fiery way people imagine when a marriage ends. No plates shattered, no voices rose. It was quieter than that. It was the kind of breaking that comes with clarity. He had just told me exactly who he was, and I would be a fool to pretend I hadn't heard it. That night, I lay beside him in bed. He scrolled through his phone, the glow reflecting on his face, his fingers tapping lazily at the screen. I stared at the ceiling. My eyes burned, but no tears fell. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the word again. Practice. It wasn't just cruel, it was the truth leaking out. The kind of truth you only reveal when you've already convinced yourself of it. By morning, I knew what I had to do. The morning after Daniel called me his practice wife, something inside me had shifted. I didn't explode. I didn't beg him to take it back. I simply moved forward. While he showered, I sat at the kitchen table with my phone and called a lawyer I knew through a mutual friend. By lunch, I already had an appointment scheduled. Walking into that law office felt surreal, like stepping into a parallel version of my own life. The attorney slid papers across the desk, explaining details in a calm voice while my hands trembled faintly against the polished wood. Divorce. I signed where I needed to, my pen scratching against the paper like thunder in the quiet office. My chest was tight, but beneath it there was something else, something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. That night, I drove home with the papers folded neatly in a folder on the passenger seat. I didn't cry. I didn't even listen to music. The silence itself felt like an answer. When I walked into the house, Daniel was on the couch, scrolling his phone again, a smirk tugging at his lips. He didn't even look up. I held the papers against my chest, feeling the weight of them. Then, slowly, I set them down on the kitchen counter. "What's this?" he asked, frowning as he flipped the folder open. I met his eyes, steady. "Divorce papers." His head snapped up. "You're kidding." "No," my voice didn't shake. "I'm not." He laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. "You can't be serious. Over one argument? Over something I said when I was frustrated?" I crossed my arms, grounding myself. "You didn't call me your practice wife by accident, Daniel. You meant it." His face faltered, just for a moment. Then he scoffed, leaning back. I was angry. People say things they don't mean. "No," I countered softly. "People say things they'd never admit otherwise when they're angry. And you admitted everything." He pushed up from his couch, his posture bristling with false confidence. "You're being dramatic. Every couple fights. You think throwing away a marriage over one slip-up is reasonable?" I stared at him, silence stretching like glass between us. Finally, I said, "Couples fight, but couples don't call each other disposable placeholders. You showed me exactly how little I mean to you. I won't stay and wait for you to find better." His jaw tightened. "So that's it? You're just giving up?" I almost laughed at the irony. "No, Daniel, you gave up. I'm just listening." His voice rose, sharper now. "You're just doing this to punish me. You want me to beg? Is that it? You think this is teaching me some lesson?" I shook my head, calm. "I don't want to punish you. I want to move on." He slammed his hand against the counter, the sound cracking through the room. "Unbelievable. After everything I've done for this marriage, you're walking away like it's nothing." My eyes flicked to the papers between us. "You said it yourself. To you, this marriage is nothing. Practice. So let's stop pretending." For the first time since I'd known him, Daniel didn't have a quick comeback. His mouth opened, then closed again. His eyes flickered with something I couldn't name. Fear, maybe, or regret. I didn't wait to find out. I picked up my jacket, slung it over my shoulder, and walked toward the door. Behind me, his voice cracked. "You're making a mistake." I paused in the doorway, turned back once, and said, "No, Daniel. For the first time in years, I'm not." And then I left. That week blurred into a series of logistics, meetings with the lawyer, splitting accounts, canceling the joint credit card. I moved into a small rental, the kind of place that was quiet enough to let me breathe. Daniel barely responded at first, almost like he didn't believe I'd actually go through with it. He didn't even sign the papers right away. Instead, he sent random texts. "We need to talk. This is stupid. Just come home and we'll figure it out." I didn't answer. The silence between us grew louder than any words, and strangely, for the first time in years, I felt calm. The first morning in my rental apartment, I woke up to silence. No passive-aggressive sighs. No glow of a phone screen illuminating the other side of the bed. Just quiet. I brewed coffee in a small pot that sputtered and hissed, filling the air with a rich aroma. For the first time in a long time, I realized how much I had missed the sound of my own breath without tension pressing against it. Life was simple, stripped down to essentials, but it was mine. Daniel, however, seemed to sprint in the opposite direction. Within days, his social media exploded. Rooftop bars, expensive restaurants, dinners with a woman whose face never fully appeared in the frame, though her manicured hand and glittering jewelry gave her away. A friend of mine, Melissa, texted me one night, "Have you seen his Instagram lately?" I hadn't. I unfollowed him the day I filed, but curiosity tugged at me. I opened his profile and scrolled. There he was, grinning with a champagne glass in hand. New clothes, new watch, new woman. He hadn't posted a picture of me in months, but suddenly he was documenting everything. It should have hurt. It didn't. If anything, it confirmed what I already knew. I had been nothing more than a placeholder. A convenient warm-up round while he searched for something shinier. So I stopped looking. Instead, I turned inward. I picked up running again, lacing my shoes and pounding the pavement until the night air filled my lungs. I reconnected with friends I had let drift during my marriage. I signed up for evening pottery classes, the cool clay grounding me in a way I hadn't expected. Piece by piece, I was stitching myself back together. And then, a few months later, Melissa called me, her voice bubbling with disbelief. "Jenny, you're not going to believe this." I was halfway through cooking dinner. "What now?" "That woman Daniel's been parading around." Turns out she was already engaged. He was just her side project. Apparently she dumped him at some bar last weekend, threw a drink in his face, screamed at him in front of everyone. I froze with the wooden spoon in my hand. Engaged? Yep. All this time he was bragging about her, and she was never his to begin with. It's poetic, honestly. Poetic, predictable. I leaned against the counter, absorbing it. But strangely, I didn't gloat. I didn't text him. Didn't feel the urge to rub salt in the wound. All I felt was relief, because for once, this wasn't my mess anymore. The shift was obvious. Almost overnight, Daniel's highlight reel dried up. No more rooftop dinners, no more champagne selfies. Instead, his stories became vague quotes about betrayal and heartbreak. Some people aren't who they pretend to be. Never trust someone who says you're the only one. The same friends who used to defend him began to change their tune. "He's kind of unbearable lately," one admitted. Like, he thought he upgraded, and now he's just bitter. I kept my mouth shut, sipping my tea, feeling an almost serene detachment. Because for the first time, his downfall wasn't tethered to me. It was his own, and I was free. It started with a text. "Hey, stranger, how are you?" I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I set the phone face down on the table. No reply. A day later, "I miss you. Can we talk?" Silence. Then came the longer messages. Excuses disguised as apologies. I was stressed. I didn't mean what I said. You know me better than that. I deleted them without finishing. But Daniel was relentless. When silence didn't work, he shifted tactics. He called. His voice on voicemail was shaky, almost pleading. "You're really going to throw away everything we had? You're supposed to fight for us, Jenny. That's what marriage means. Not just running when things get hard." For a moment, his words tugged at the strings of memory. Once I would have believed them. Once I would have carried the weight of saving us, no matter how little he respected me. But not anymore. The more I ignored him, the more desperate he became. "I know you miss me. Don't lie to yourself. After everything I sacrificed for you, this is how you treat me? You're cold, Jenny. Heartless. No wonder I wanted more." I read them once, then deleted them. Each word was less about me and more about him unraveling. When guilt trips failed, he tried another angle. Mutual friends. Melissa texted me, "Hey, Daniel asked me to talk to you. He says he regrets everything. Maybe give him a chance?" I sent back, "Appreciate it, but no, don't get involved." Another friend messaged, "He won't stop talking about you. It's kind of sad." I ignored that one completely. And then came the knock. It was a Saturday afternoon when pounding rattled my apartment door. My stomach dropped, already knowing. I opened it to find Daniel standing there, eyes red and puffy, mascara-like smudges of exhaustion under his eyes. He looked nothing like the polished man flaunting rooftop bars on Instagram. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice cracking. I stepped outside, pulling the door half closed behind me. The air between us was thick with desperation. "There's nothing left to talk about." Tears spilled down his cheeks. "Please, Jenny, I messed up. I didn't mean what I said. I was scared. I was stupid. You're not practice. You're—" I held up a hand, cutting him off. My voice was steady. "Stop." His face crumpled, desperation twisting into bitterness. "So you're really just going to throw me away like garbage after everything we've been through?" I met his gaze without flinching. "I'm not throwing you away. You did that the moment you decided I was temporary." His tone hardened, his tears evaporating into sharpness. "So that's it? You think you're better than me now? You think some other guy's going to magically fall into your lap?" I shook my head. "This isn't about anyone else. It's about me choosing peace over being treated like a backup plan." He opened his mouth, anger sparking, but I had already turned to go inside. His voice cracked as he shouted after me, "You'll regret this!" But even as the words echoed down the hallway, I knew I never would. Months passed. Seasons shifted. My life settled into something steady, something simple, something mine. I didn't expect to see Daniel again, not really. But fate has a strange sense of humor. It was at a mutual friend's wedding. The hall glittered with string lights, music thumping as laughter spilled across the dance floor. I was mid-conversation with Melissa when I felt the weight of someone's gaze. I turned, and there he was. Daniel. He looked smaller somehow. His once polished charm had dulled. His shoulders slumped, and for the first time he wasn't surrounded by admirers. He was alone, sitting at a table, scrolling his phone like a man desperate for distraction. When his eyes met mine, he froze. Then, quickly, he stood, straightening his jacket as though he could piece himself back together in a heartbeat. He plastered on a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey." His voice was soft, almost like nothing had ever happened. "You look good." I nodded politely. "Thanks." He shifted, fidgeting with the edge of his cuff. "Can we talk? Just for a minute." I sighed, but followed him toward the edge of the room, away from the crowd. The music dimmed in the distance, leaving us in a bubble of silence. He took a shaky breath. I wanted to say I'm sorry, for everything. I was stupid. I thought I wanted more, but all I found was people who didn't care about me. You were the only one who ever actually loved me." His words hung between us, heavy. I studied him, noticing the lines on his face, the hollowness in his eyes. Finally, I spoke. "Daniel, you told me I was practice. Practice is something you throw away when you're done with it. That's how you saw me, and once you said it out loud, there was no going back." His eyes brimmed with tears, but I didn't mean it. "Yes, you did." My voice was calm, steady. "Maybe not in the exact words, but you meant it enough to let it slip, and it showed me exactly where I stood with you. I believed you then. I believe you now." He shook his head desperately. "But I've changed. I get it now. Please, Jenny, just give me another chance." A quiet laugh escaped me. Not cruel, just final. "Another chance to be someone's warm-up round?" "No, Daniel, I'm not practice anymore." His face twisted, shifting from pleading to furious. "You're cold, heartless. You'll never find someone who puts up with you the way I did." I smiled faintly. "Good. I don't want someone who just puts up with me. I want someone who values me. And that person sure as hell isn't you." For a second, I thought he might lash out. Instead, he turned sharply on his heel and stormed out of the hall, his footsteps echoing. I exhaled slowly, the weight of years lifting from my shoulders. I walked back to my table, ordered another drink, and watched the bride and groom laugh together on the dance floor. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely free. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if someone called you practice?